Hey guys, it's Caden. Welcome to another Autism Digest interview, where today we have someone who I'm really excited about. I've always been a hip hop music fan. He's a nerdcore rapper, which is a genre where they talk about video games, I believe. He's collaborated with several neurodivergent artists, including CG5 and Danbull recently. He is Connor Quest. Thanks for coming on, Connor.
Hello, thank you for having me.
All right, I think lots of people might recognize you. You have 85.3K subs on YouTube, but for those that may not, to start us off, do you mind telling us your story in your own words?
Yeah, well, I first got into nerdcore probably when I was around 14 years old, through listening to people, as you mentioned, like Dan Bull. Started making my own bits of content here and there, very early YouTube days or early enough. And yeah, I basically just spiraled into working with, more and more people, collaborating with bigger artists and getting my own opportunities and putting more music and content out there. I then went to university to study music, which I would just then keep making it and making content and putting it out, and eventually it stuck, and that's what I do today all the time.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing, and you're definitely talented at it. I've listened to a lot of your ciphers on your own channel, and I honestly wish I could rap like you do. My next question for you is, you've worked with several neurodivergent artists, most notably CG5 and Dan Bull just recently. Out of all the neurodivergent or autistic artists you've worked with, which one was your favorite to work with and why?
I think Dan Bull is always going to be one of my favorite people to work with. I mean, he's like the godfather of nerdcore for a lot of us. Like, he's the reason that we all do what we do in some sense. Many of us grew up on his music and what he did, and he really pushed the genre to a different level, to where I think anyone thought it could go, going viral like many times over in the sort of like 2010s space, up to like 2020. And even now, like, he's still putting out incredible work, but his best stuff, I think, has been in the last sort of 2 to 3 years. And he's just a joy to be around, just as a person as well. Being from England as well, I've had the pleasure of meeting and hanging out a few different times, and yeah, just always a pleasure to be around. I mean, everyone that I work with generally is. I mean, CG5 also I've met a handful of times, and it's always been a great experience.
Yeah, I've watched several of their videos. They seem like amazing people, especially Dan Bull. I grew up with him during the epic rap battles of history era, where he was Jack the Ripper and Winston Churchill. He's extremely talented, so I definitely agree with you there. My next question for you is, how can we raise more awareness about neurodiversity in the music industry, given that there's a lot of neurodiverse artists out there, not just in nerdcore and hip hop specifically, but in all genres of music, many of which I've talked to on here?
Yeah, I think just one thing I always try and say to people is be authentic and just be, unapologetically yourself. And wherever that, people often think that means like tell your story and, tell people about your life. It's not necessarily true. I think being authentically yourself is more wrapped in performance. I think it's more wrapped in how you carry yourself. And I think when you express yourself freely, I think people resonate and feel that, whether you're saying it abruptly or not, whether you're just saying the words like "this is how I feel," or whether you're showing how you feel. And I think that is one of the most important aspects in making people feel comfortable in music and making people feel like they can push themselves to be expressive and not worry about, how they may come off or be perceived, because it's all about your own story. And I think whichever way you tell that is completely your decision. And I think that is probably what needs to be focused on more and expressed more, is just being yourself, no matter what.
I absolutely agree. Not just in the music industry, but in all fields. So one of the joys I get about doing stuff like this is hearing people's stories and perspectives. So I really like what you're saying about stories and how they're important and how we should focus on them. My next question for you is what's your advice to anyone, neurodivergent or not, that wants to make it in the music industry?
For to make it in the music industry, you have to work very hard. You have to, especially these days, because a lot of things have changed in the music industry. Not least in the sort of upper echelon of mainstream. If that's where you're looking, then you have a big journey ahead of you. It's not impossible though. I think it's the most possible it's ever been for anyone and everyone because of how the internet has evolved and how independent artists can reach a level of audience that they never would have been able to. Even 10 years ago, it was so much less likely than it is now for you to just break out of a local area and go to your whole country, break out of your country and go to the rest of the world. Like, it's so much easier than it was. Not to say it's easy, but it's definitely a lot more accessible. But you really have to put the work in. You have to make a lot of time sacrifices, I think is one of the biggest things. You know, there have been plenty of nights where I've given up sleep to get something done when I feel it needs to be done. And I think that is an important thing as well, is finish things, put things out. Because if you don't put things out, then no one is ever going to see it. Whether 3 people see it because you put it out, that's 3 people. Like, that's 3 separate people that have listened to your thing. If you don't put it out at all, no one's going to listen to it. You have a net zero every single time. So my advice is always be putting things out, whether you feel like it's your best work or not. It's a part of your next best work. Making that thing and finishing it gives you something else to go into the next thing. I have a lot of friends that would sit on music and they would like try and perfect this one thing because like this is going to be the thing that goes crazy. So I need to make sure it's like perfect. And it's like, but what if it doesn't? Because there is always that chance. And then you've spent all that time on this one thing when in that scope of time, you could have released 4 things and each one would have been progressively better than the other, because that's just how practice and putting time into things works. And I think that's always going to yield a better result than holding on to stuff.
I absolutely agree. I definitely like that. Not just with music, but with anything really. It's all about putting in the work and not holding on to things you make, because it definitely could be a part of something bigger in the future. My last question for it is, what does the future hold for you? Do you have any upcoming songs or videos that you want to promote?
I always have new stuff on the go. I have a fun project that I'm starting with a few separate people that I can't quite name just yet, but that will be coming a little later in the year. I'm starting to do a lot more live stuff. So I have a show in November down in London, which is a really cool experience, being able to perform stuff like this live and be able to see like people in the audience. I haven't done that like too much over my time. So it's really exciting to be able to have that, in-person experience with a lot of fans, being what I do, so internet based and so online based. It's always a great time being able to get that energy in a live setting. And then solo songs, I don't have anything immediate in my pipeline, but I'm always looking for the next sort of thing to like spark my interest. And there's been some Digital Circus episodes that I need to catch up on, but I love that show. So probably something along those lines, or Has Been Hotel season 2. That'll be coming out soon. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff on the way.
All that definitely sounds exciting, especially the Has Been Hotel stuff. Anyway, that's going to do it for this interview. Thank you so much to Connor for coming on and sharing his story and perspectives. If you guys want to see more amazing interviews, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Autism Digest channel. Stay tuned for our August issue that comes out next month. You can order that by going to autismdigest.com. And stay tuned for the audio file of this video to be on the Spotify. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.